Hi there, it's Clay, and this is the Relationship Inner Game Experience brought to you by modernlove.life. Now, this is actually the second episode of the Relationship Inner Game Experience. As you may recall if you watched last week was a little bit of an experiment, and I'm glad to say that a lot of people in the Modern Love Association, in our little online community for our students, have really appreciated this little show, this experience, this podcast, this webcast, this whatever you want to call it. And so we've decided to go ahead and move forward with it, at least for the next couple of weeks, to get a little bit more of an understanding about maybe what people think about it, what they like, what they don't like, and all of that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and continue again this week. I've got my cup of tea here, I've got my computer to answer some of your questions, but before we go ahead and get into all of that, I want to first talk about one of the most important things that I could really talk about. You know, since we've kind of rebooted the podcast, and since this is just the second episode of the Relationship Inner Game Experience, I want to talk about what is perhaps the most important thing in the whole process of finding love, and that is the big picture, okay? Because you see, oftentimes people will write into me and they'll ask, you know, hey, I'm in some sort of situation. How do I make this person commit to me? How do I get this person to love me? Or something along those lines. And that really isn't the first thing that you should be asking yourself when it comes to trying to find a relationship. Now, what do I mean by all of this? What I mean is that when it comes to finding a relationship, when it comes to finding love, you don't just fumble around blindly and then find somebody that you think is attractive and then try to make things work. You have to have something a little bit more concrete underlying that entire foundation. Specifically, you need to know exactly what it is you're looking for in a partner and in a relationship. Now, you don't really necessarily need to do all of this stuff if you're very young and you don't have a whole lot of relationship experience, and you know, you just want to date around and see what's out there and stuff. You know, if you are very young, then, you know, sure, just go ahead and date around. Learn a little bit about what you like and what you don't like. That's absolutely fine. But if you are actually wanting a committed relationship where maybe you might be together for the long term, or even get married or start a family together or something like that, then you really need to stop and think about what you actually want in a relationship, and more importantly, what you don't want in a relationship or a partner as well too. So few people actually do this. Instead, they just kind of go with, you know, whatever, and then they find somebody attractive, and then they hope that there's chemistry or a connection between the two of them, and then they hope that that's enough to make the relationship work. But it's really not. You know, if it's really important for you to be in a relationship with somebody who, for example, has a main value of adventure, then you really need to make sure that you have some sort of set of procedure in place for making sure that you find somebody who is adventurous, who will be able to go with you on the journey of life and have that adventurous experience. And more importantly, you also need to know how that person perceives adventure. So for example, you know, your idea of being adventurous might be taking a year off to travel around the world and see everything, which is great. I've done that before in my life, and it was a great experience. But if you are with somebody who is also adventurous, but maybe their idea of adventurous is to, you know, try the new Thai restaurant down the street, then there's going to be a little bit of friction, a little bit of conflict between the two of you. So it's important that you have a good sense about who you're looking for and what sorts of qualities you're not looking for. You know, just in the same way that you might want to be with somebody who's adventurous, you also might not want to be with somebody who is emotionally unavailable, for example, or somebody who cheats, or, you know, something like that, right? And so it's really important to know this stuff because, you know, let's say, for example, you didn't want to be with somebody who cheats, but you just went along with the usual method that most people do when it comes to dating and relationships. You just fumble along and you find somebody and you have good chemistry, and then suddenly you find out that person is a cheater, and you're like, okay, well, how do I make the relationship work? And that's kind of a moot point, because it doesn't matter if the relationship works or not, because even if the relationship works, even if the two of you get together, get married, form the most wonderful whatever, you're still going to be in a relationship with a cheater. And you're going to have to live with the consequences of that. Or you're still going to be in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally unavailable. Or you're still going to be in a relationship with somebody who thinks their idea of adventure is to try the new Thai restaurant down the street, when really you just want to take a year off and travel the world. So it's really important that you take the time to actually think about what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want in a partner, in a relationship, in a union of sorts. And this is, of course, very important for you to think about if you are at all interested in a committed relationship. If you just want to date around, sleep around or something, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to think about this stuff as hard. And of course, if you're very young and you just need to get a little bit of experience, that's fine too. You should be out there getting experience to actually find out what it is that you like and what it is that you don't like. Then, of course, once you find somebody who does meet your requirements for a partner, well, first of all, before you get anywhere near that, you need to be willing to accept people as they are. So maybe you go out, you meet somebody, and you think, oh, this person seems pretty close, but if only they would change this little thing, or only if they would change that little thing, then they would be perfect. You do not want to pursue this kind of relationship or this kind of partner, because you are going to be trying to change them, which is probably the least loving thing you could ever do, is to try to make somebody be something other than what they are or what they want to be in order to please you. And so what you want to do is you want to be willing to accept somebody 100% as they are right now. You don't want to be betting on potential. You don't want to be betting on someday they might finally stop cheating on me or something like that. Because, sure, yes, people do change. Yes, people can change. People change all the time. But what if your little cheater over there didn't want to change for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Would you be willing to wait 20 years for them to finally have this realization that, oh, hey, it's kind of a dick move to be cheating on people. Maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, right? You can't do that. You have to accept them as they are. And if you can't accept them as they are, and if you can't be in a great relationship with them as they are right now, then you need to let that person go so that you can create space in your life to welcome somebody who is going to be loyal and faithful to you, who is going to be emotionally available to you, who is going to want to travel the world for a year together with you, who is going to whatever your list of wants and desires and needs might be. So this is very important. Now, let's say you met somebody and they fit all of your requirements and all of that stuff and everything is looking great. This is where the emotional connection really comes into play. This is where what we call advanced relational skills come into play. Because, yeah, you might meet the right person for you, but maybe you just don't have the interpersonal skills, the communication skills, or whatever to be able to talk to that person, to be able to engage that person, to be able to convince that person to go out on a date with you, or to spend time with you, or to spend a lifetime together with you. And that's where the quality of the emotional connection really comes into play. You want to focus on the quality of the emotional connection. Again, after you have already determined that this is the right person for you to be in a relationship with, and after you have completely accepted this person as they are right now in this moment, that's when you want to focus on the quality of the emotional connection that the two of you have. So this is where advanced relational skills come into play. This is where things like present moment awareness, or empathy, or curiosity, or composure, or conversational skills come into play, things that we teach in our programs. And this is where you really build up those positive interactions. And again, there's countless things that you could be paying attention to, right? You could be paying attention to who is initiating first, who is texting first, how long it takes them to text you back, whether or not they like your posts on Facebook, whether or not they follow you on Instagram, whether or not they do any of these other things, right? You could micro-analyze all of these sorts of things, but ultimately these are not important. Ultimately, the most important thing for you to focus on is the quality of the emotional connection. That is why we are really focusing on that. If you're focusing on all of these other things, it's probably because you didn't do a good job screening them first and making sure that they meet your requirements for a partner or a relationship. So definitely make sure that you do that. And then once they are, golden with your set of requirements, that is when you focus on the emotional connection and only the emotional connection. If you are focusing on anything else, you are actually being distracted by things that, quite frankly, just don't matter, okay? And so that is the most important thing after you make sure that the person actually meets your requirements for a partner. And then, of course, once the two of you start to come together into a relationship, your job at that point is to get 100% committed to that relationship. Be all the way in that relationship. There are so many relationship problems that happen because somebody is maybe 1 foot in the relationship, 1 foot out of the relationship, and they're just kind of wishy-washy. They're just kind of like, well, we'll see. If you do this for me, then I'm willing to commit 100%. If you do that for me, then I'm willing to give you everything, right? But if you really want to know if a relationship is going to work or not, you really need to be all the way in. You have to be 100% in the relationship. Otherwise, you're never going to know if it's going to work or not. So don't do this kind of like half in, half out kind of thing. That's really mostly a fear that people have when it comes to relationships, because oftentimes people are afraid to commit because they don't know how to get out of a relationship. And, you know, I'm sure you've heard all of these weird, terrible stories where somebody breaks up with somebody else via text message, or somebody, you know, does something stupid like that, right? And that's not how you want to go about doing it. And that's really the coward's way out, because most likely that person just didn't know how to end a relationship in a healthy way. And so you want to be very confident in your ability to end things, to be able to walk away, to be able to wrap things up, because if you don't know how to get out, you're going to have a lot of fear and hesitation when it comes to getting in. So again, that's kind of the big picture when it comes to all of this stuff. If you are having a dating or relationship problem somewhere in the spectrum, it's probably due to one of those things. Is this the right person for you to be dating? You know, have you actually stopped and looked and accepted them as the person that they are? Can you accept them the way that they are? Do they have the qualities that you're looking for? Do they not have the qualities that you're not looking for, right? After that, do you have the ability to form a meaningful, strong emotional connection with that person? If not, what can you do to improve that? And once you actually start to form that connection and a commitment starts to come together in the form of a relationship, a marriage, whatever it might be, then are you willing to be 100% in that relationship? Is there a part of you that's still kind of edging towards the escape exit, or wondering what your plan B is, or afraid to commit for some reason or another? Because if you're not ready to do whatever it takes to get out if things don't work out, then you're going to be afraid to get all the way in the relationship. So again, that's the big picture when it comes to all of this relationship stuff. That's the big picture when it comes to dating. And before you send in some sort of message like, hey Clay, so-and-so won't return my text message, what should I do? Then you need to first go through this whole process. Are they the right person for you? Are you actually connecting with them on a deep emotional level? Are you 100% in? And if you're not, then that's where you need to go first before you start overanalyzing Facebook activity, text message activity, or whatever it might be. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today. And with that being said, again, we have our cup of tea and we have our computer here. So let's go ahead and answer some questions that some people have this week. Okay, our first question this week is from Jay. Now, Jay writes in and says, why sometimes connection and attraction isn't enough? For some of us, all of these things are there, but still the person decides not to be in a relationship with one. This feeling itself hurts a lot because it seems as if one is really not enough, no matter what one does or doesn't do. So when it comes to situations like this, as I mentioned in the opening part of this webcast, there are certain things that certain people want or don't want in a relationship or a partner, right? And not everybody goes through the process of actually thinking about what it is that they really want, what it is that they don't want, and all of that stuff. But people oftentimes have some inkling of what they want or don't want in a partner or a relationship. So for example, like maybe some people just don't want to do a long distance relationship. Maybe they've tried it in the past and it was just really difficult, and so they've just sworn off long distance relationships for any number of reasons, right? And they're just closed off to that. It doesn't matter if you're the best person in the world, they're just going to be closed off to that idea because on some level they've already made the decision, nope, I am not going to do a long distance relationship, or nope, I'm not going to be with a cheater. Once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't personally believe that, but oftentimes people do believe that saying. And they might think that, because you've cheated on them once or something like that, that you will always cheat on them forever, and that they need to, just cut you out of their life because you will always be a cheater. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter any of this other stuff because they have this strongly felt conviction. And this is kind of like them going through their own list of requirements and them basically disqualifying you for any number of reasons, right? It could be because a long distance situation. It could be because maybe you cheated on them. It could be because of something that you said. It could be because of something that you did. It could be, any number of other things like that. And so in situations like this, if a person already has a deeply felt conviction one way or another, it's not really going to matter if you establish a strong level of connection with them or try every attraction trick in the book or anything like that. Because if they just have decided that some quality of yours, some characteristic of yours, some whatever of yours just isn't what they want to be in a relationship with, then there really isn't anything that you can do. Now, again, like what I talked about in the final episode of Love Talk FM, it was that you really can't control what somebody is going to do or say or anything like that. You can influence it by how you bring yourself to the interaction, by all of that stuff, but you really can't control what somebody is going to do. And if somebody is just convinced that they never want to be in a long distance relationship rather, then they're just not going to go for it. They're just going to be closed off to that. So, if all you can offer them is a long-distance relationship, then, they might say, oh, well, it was really nice meeting you. We have a really strong connection, but I'm just not interested in a long-distance relationship. Best of luck to you. Maybe things might work out in a couple years if you ever decide to move over here, or I ever decide to move over there, or whatever. But again, you can't control what that person is going to say. You can influence it. You can say, well, what if I came over once in a while, once a month or something like that? And, sure, you might be able to work things out that way. But ultimately, if they are just not interested in a long-distance relationship, if there's no wiggle room in their set of requirements for a partner or a relationship or anything like that for a long-distance relationship to exist, then they are just not going to be down for it, okay? And again, the whole long-distance thing, that's just an example. This could apply to any number of other outcomes or circumstances, okay? So, for example, for me, when I realized that I had a certain type of woman, let's just say, that I was instinctively attracted to after things really fell apart with me and my ex when I was around like 23 or 24. I made a conscious decision not to get anywhere near people that had that kind of personality trait. And, somebody who plays the victim in life, somebody who is constantly depressed, somebody who looks to their partner as their emotional prop to be the source of all of their emotional well-being or something like that. And that was something that was really important for me when it came to going out there and dating. And, whenever I sensed that somebody was like that, I just knew that wouldn't be a good thing for me to get into. Sure, maybe I was instinctively attracted to that kind of person. Sure, maybe that was a dynamic that felt easy and comfortable for me, but I knew from my experiences with my ex and my experience, shortly after the breakup that we had with some other people, that that was really not the right dynamic for me when it came to being in a relationship. So what I actually did is I kind of made this list of things that I was instinctively attracted to and then things that I really wanted out of a relationship. And once I stopped paying attention to the stuff that I was instinctively attracted to, that is when I actually started to have a whole lot better results when it came to dating and relationships. And within a short period of time, I actually met the woman that would go on to become my wife, and I'm very happy to say that she is not anything like the type of woman that I would have normally been instinctively attracted to, and I was able to avoid kind of having a repeat of the same relationship that I had with my ex, but just with a different person in a different bag of skin, basically. So if if your ex or if your partner or if the person that you're dating just has some sort of deeply held conviction about, any number of things, and maybe you don't even know what this thing or things might be, they just might not even give you a chance, right? And there's nothing you can really say or do about it. Now, sure, maybe if you really work on those advanced relational skills, you can influence them to give you another chance if there is some wiggle room there. But if there's no wiggle room there, and if that person is just very deeply convicted to, whatever their belief is, whatever their limitation is, whatever their boundary is, then there's really nothing that you can do to get past that. And the best thing for you to do in that sort of circumstance is to let go of that person and create the space in your life for you to welcome somebody who, is willing to accept you for the person or circumstances that you live in, or characteristics that you have, and so on and so forth, okay? So, Jay, I hope that helps you out, and please keep us updated on how things go moving forward from here. Okay, and our next question is from Vixen on when is it enough? Vixen writes in and says, "Hi Clay, I had a question regarding what do you think are guidelines or items/instances that can let us know that we should keep going or not with trying to get our ex back? It can be an exhausting process and really quite difficult for some. Some are tired of trying so hard and think that they deserve better. You say a lot about it only being over if you actually give up, which is true. You only actually have zero chance of getting back together with your ex or making something work if you actually give up." But then Vixen continues by saying, "So I just wanted to know your thoughts on when you think is the right time to stop things, not actively pursue the person anymore and to try to find new love. I know from your story with your ex that you had personally to make that choice as well. Thanks." Okay, Vixen, so when it comes to all of this, first of all, like I said, you can give up anytime you want to. If you just don't want to work things out with somebody, you can let go. You can stop trying. You can decide to drop that and go find another way to get things to work out. But if you want things to work with your ex, if you want that relationship to work, if you want to save that relationship, if you want to get back together, then what you want to do is you want to get all the way in, right? Like I was saying in the beginning part of this show, you want to get all the way in and give it 100%, right? If you're halfway in, halfway out, trying to calculate what the chances are, what the odds are, if luck is in your favor, if fate is in your favor, if the odds are ever in your favor, or anything like that, then you are going to be really half-hearted about things, and you're going to be basically looking for an excuse to fail, looking for an excuse to not have things work out. And that, again, if you don't want to get back together, if you don't want to save that relationship, that's totally fine. You don't have to, right? There's nothing wrong with just picking yourself up after a breakup and saying, okay, that sucked, let me go find a different person to date, a different person to be in a relationship with, right? But if you want to get back together, if you want to reverse that breakup, then what you need to do is you need to give it full 100% of what you've got for a period of time, right? And again, it's not like this is the last choice you'll ever make. It's not like you're just going to say, yes, I'm going to give it everything I've got, and then you're just going to keep giving it everything you've got for years and years and years and years and decades and decades and decades, and then you're going to look up one day and you're going to be like, 80 years old, and you're going to say like, how do I stop trying to get my ex? Like that's not going to happen. At any point in time, you can make a decision to not want to get back together with your ex anymore. That's absolutely fine. And ultimately, that choice is up to you. Ultimately, the choice of whether or not you want to continue to make things work out is up to you. Ultimately, if you decide to stop trying to save things with your ex, then that's a choice that's yours as well too. But me personally, as somebody who wants to see you succeed in love and wants to see you find love, what I would do is I would look and say, okay, if it's been at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months maybe, and you have seen zero progress with your ex during that period of time, then I would personally, as somebody who wants to see you find love, I would step in and say, hey, is this still something that you want to do? And if you say yes, then that's fine. You can keep going. If you say no, then okay, that's cool too. But, this is just me doing a check-in with you. And by zero progress, I mean that. I mean zero progress, okay? Not that it's slower than you would like, not that it, it'd be nice if you were already back together at this point or anything like that. But if you've seen like zero progress, because, when it comes to saving a relationship, it will take some time, and it will take some time to build trust, to rebuild connection, to get the other person to actually put their faith into you and say, okay, yeah, this isn't the same relationship that I walked out of in the first place. And that is going to take some time. But if you're not seeing any progress at all over a period of, a couple months, then that would really make me stop and wonder. That would really make me stop and wonder if this person is really open to being in a relationship with me right now, if it's really possible for me to get back together with this person right now. And again, you got to drop this black and white thinking, right? Because even if it isn't possible for that person to get back together with you right now because maybe they just have too much pain or too much hurt, or they're just resistant to working things out with you because, like we were talking about with Jay before, maybe you would be in a long-distance relationship if you were to get back together or something like that. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. Things could be different in a couple of months or a year or something like that, right? So just another example, for me, when I broke up with my ex, we didn't talk for, I think, probably about a year or 2 years or something like that. And that was fine. We just weren't in a good place to talk. I didn't want to talk to her. She didn't really seem to want to talk to me, except for one time when she called me to sort of dump on me and tell me about how much I suck as a person to my voicemail and all that. But that's a whole other story. And then several months down the road, I was just in a place where I was I'd moved to a new city, I was going to graduate school and all that stuff, and I was just going through a period of my life where I just wanted to get right with all of the people that I wasn't right with emotionally, and she was on the list because of kind of some leftover baggage from how we broke up and all that stuff. And so this is going to kind of date me, but I got onto MySpace back then, and I looked her up and I sent her a message just basically saying something along the lines of, hey, I just really wanted to apologize for how things ended with us. Looking back, I understand like why you were upset with me, and I should have been more present with you. I should have been more understanding of you, and all this other stuff. And I sent it off to her, and she actually wrote back to me. She basically said, wow, this is what I've been waiting to hear all of this time. This is what I wanted to hear all this time. And, then we just kind of swapped some messages back and forth for a couple weeks. But, by that point, she was kind of in a relationship with somebody else, actually engaged to be married to that person. And it was just kind of weird for me because I didn't want to, be like the guy who stepped in and broke up somebody's wedding or anything like that. So that's when I kind of just bowed out of the whole thing because it was a little bit too weird for me. But again, there's no black and white to all of this. Just because somebody doesn't want to get back together with you right now doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. Right? Just like how just because my ex didn't want to talk to me at that time didn't mean that she was always going to be closed off to me. In fact, it was kind of getting kind of hot and flirty towards the end before I had to kind of set my own boundaries and say, okay, we're just going to stop talking now because I don't want to be that guy that, breaks up a marriage or something like that. So, again, just because something is a certain way right now doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. Like we talk about inside the X Solution program, your ex has a certain emotional resistance towards getting back together with you or possibly even interacting with you at all. And this emotional resistance can be overcome by two factors. One of those is how you bring yourself to the relationship, right? This is where the advanced relational skills come into play. This is where the quality of your emotional connections come into play, right? If you obviously are doing something that's going to make you have a poor emotional connection, like begging and pleading, writing them a tear-stained letter, dissing their rebound that they're dating right now, or anything like that. That's going to cause them to pull back, to elevate their walls, and to not want to interact with you, right? Obviously. Whereas if you do something that's more likely to help them open up and interact with you, such as take a genuine interest in their experience, asking them the magic questions, all of that stuff, they're more likely to actually open up to you and to interact with you and all of that stuff. But even if that doesn't work, that could be because a period of time just needs to pass so that your ex can go through their own period of growth, their own period of discovery, to really start to let go of some of these negative feelings that they're holding on to. And oftentimes that can happen over a period of time. You know, if enough time passes, they might start to let go of some of that bitterness or that resentment. Now, this isn't necessarily always true, and sometimes time won't fix things, but if you just bring yourself to the interaction in the right way, it can cause people to let go of bitterness and stuff that maybe they're even holding on to despite time. So there's really these two different factors of time and also the way that you bring yourself to the interactions. And when it comes to time, I mean, really all you can do is wait. But when it comes to how you bring yourself to the interactions, you absolutely have control over that. You absolutely have control over that. And that's where the advanced relational skills really start to shine. But there is no real time limit, so to speak. There's really only a matter of whether or not you are actively interested in continuing with this endeavor or not. However, again, I would personally, as a friend, not as some sort of, person saying there is a hard and fast rule that it is completely hopeless after 3 months. No, it not in any way whatsoever. I know way better than that after helping people, countless people over the years. I've seen so many people come back from things that I probably would have thought would have been, hopeless situations. I know better than to write anybody off. But, just as somebody who cares about you, I would step in and say, hey, it's been like 3 months. Is this still something you want to do? And if you say yes, cool. If you say no, that's cool too. But I just want to check in with you. And of course, if at any point you realize that that person just isn't meeting the qualities that you are looking for in a partner, right? So for example, if that person just isn't texting you back, no matter what, you have to accept that there is a person that just, isn't texting you back. You have to be emotionally okay with that and not try to change them, like what I was talking about at the beginning of this recording. And based off of that, you have to say, okay, would I want to continue to try to have a relationship with somebody who doesn't text me back? Is that something that I'm willing to put up with? And if it is, then hey, that's fine, keep going. But if it's not, then you need to let go of that person in order to create the space for somebody who is going to text you back, assuming that's something that is incredibly important to you. So anyway, I hope this helps you out, Vixen, and please keep us updated on how things go moving forward from here. All right, so those have been our questions for this week. Again, thank you so much for everybody in the Modern Love Association for submitting your questions. If you do have a question for next week, please go ahead and submit that again inside the Modern Love Association. If you enjoyed this relationship inner game experience webcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, please feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, leave a great comment down below. It helps us out in some way that I don't fully understand on a technical level, but please do that. And if you're listening to us on the iTunes podcast version, audio only version of this, please also subscribe to us and leave us a positive, preferably, ideally, 5-star review over on iTunes. It does help other people find us, so definitely do that if that's something that you would like to do. And once again, this has been Clay with modernlove.life. This has been the Relationship Inner Game Experience, and I'll talk to you next time.